Hello everybody, my name is Volodya and I'm an extreme and adventure sports photographer with experience in photography more than 12 years. Recently I have done a workshop in my home country in Latvia and decided to film it and share my experience with you. So probably for someone all the information that will be provided in this video will be helpful. I will start from sharing my honest vision of how I see photography industry nowadays, where I get my inspiration, and also a bit I will talk about the marketing. It's just my own opinion regarding my observations and photography experience, and I hope it will not offend someone. Obviously, there are people with different visions, so my words are not some kind of rules or tutorials that you must strictly follow, just my thoughts. Okay, so let's get started. I think a lot of us saw these memes where random people come up to a photographer and say what a cool camera he has, and the photographer is kind of offended. But you know, in 2024, in my opinion, people who are saying you have a great camera are partially right. There has been a huge progress in photography technology in the last 15 years. So a bit of rhetorical question. What effort a photographer puts into the frame when lenses have a super fast autofocus, when cameras can shoot up to 120 frames per second with huge dynamic range and ISO capabilities? Probably you will say that a photographer knows angles, knows composition rules, knows how to edit, and also he's a good psychologist if he's working with a lot of people. Yes, definitely, a photographer's knowledge and experience makes sense, but I mean, I can simply separate in my head where just clicking a button shot is and where a real photography is. But it doesn't mean if you're just clicking buttons, your shots are bad. Absolutely not. If the moment is catched perfectly, then it's still a good photo. Let me explain maybe in a different way. For example, let's go back in 50 years and remember how photographers worked in that time. They had absolutely manual adjustment of every element, from focus and aperture to choosing the right film with the right ISO value. It was a whole science of calculations of how to get the right exposed frame. Instead of flashes, explosive powder was used, where it was necessary to correctly capture the moment. And also to develop the film, you needed a lab and knowledge of how to do it. With technology's development, it's all gone. And now, all we need is just a push of a button. Our cameras literally are doing most tech things nowadays. For example, here you can see that I'm not even looking into the camera. I just pushed the button at the moment before athletes started to perform a trick, and camera did all the job with autofocus and auto exposure. I'm telling you all this only because I want to bring you the main idea of where I get my inspiration from and what my overall mindset is while I'm shooting. Everything is developing, and in the world the demand for your skills is correspondingly higher than before. For example, if in the past a gymnast athlete could perform with the simple backflips and front flips on the competition, nowadays gymnasts are doing triple flips in very hard combinations. Same in photography. If 10 or 15 years ago it was quite cool to catch sunrise, a street or a flying bird or performing athlete in top position, now it's not enough, at least for me. While shooting, I'm always asking myself, if right now I will give my camera to a random person and he or she will be able to catch the same frame only because of camera possibilities, then what is so unique about this picture? Don't get me wrong, it's great that cameras and technologies going to the next level, because with possibilities that we have right now in photography, we can catch the most unique and rare moments. But my thoughts are always about how I can do an extraordinary shot. How I can turn just button clicking into real work of art. Even when I'm shooting events, I'm trying to think how to take an unusual looking shot. Another rhetorical question is, how many pictures in the world are similar to the one that I'm taking right now? If there are already thousands of pictures of backflipping athlete on the street, do I really need to shoot one more? Of course, there are commercial shoots when you are just acting according to a template or a task from a client, and the only aim is to get some beautiful shots. In these situations, you just need to follow the brief. The real professionalism is not about stage shots with limitless time and attempts. It's about when you almost have no time for pre-production and you only have 1 or 2 tries. But even in this case, RAW format gives us so many opportunities and we can correct things in post-production. A photographer's part as a freelancer is not only about how to shoot great photos. The common mistake that I usually see in many photographers and athletes as well is to think that success will come immediately and automatically after you become a professional in your field. But unfortunately, being a super skilled person is not enough. If you're an athlete who can perform super hard tricks, Same as if you are a photographer who can shoot amazing and unique content, it's not enough for success. You need to learn how to sell yourself, how to market yourself. The reality is that a successful photographer is first of all a good seller, and secondly a skilled professional. The first step is to gain a lot of experience in photography, become a pro who can shoot in any conditions and solve any tasks. But after that, the second step will be about marketing. Your network and clients who will recommend you after cooperation also play a very important role. The more contacts, connections, and satisfied clients you have, the greater the chance that you will be recommended and invited to other projects. Now let's get into the second part of the workshop, where I will share my thoughts regarding Godox flashes. A lot of people ask me what flash is the best for action. I'm working with outdoor flashes, and here I will separate them in three categories. In the first category, there will be AD100 Pro and AD200 Pro. These two pocket flashes are great for travel missions because of their compactness. They are perfect for the portraits or action shots in dark and cloudy weather. They cannot overpower the sun in HSS mode, but without HSS mode they are still quite powerful. Also, the AD200 Pro are super versatile for combinations. For example, you can buy two of AD200 Pros and combine them into one more powerful source with a special ring. The second category is main one for action sports photography. I mean that those flashes are still quite good for travel missions and have already enough power to overpower the sun in HSS mode. So my top favorite one is AD300 Pro. It's light and compact, as well as powerful enough for HSS action shots in almost any conditions. I'm always taking AD300 Pro for traveling and for hard-to-reach areas. In my opinion, if you have two of these flashes, you will be able to cover almost any project. The second one is AD400 Pro. This one is quite powerful for challenging missions with high shutter and still kinda light to take one flash block for hiking somewhere. And now let's go to the last category. These two are absolute beasts, so if you want to blind the sun and show who's the boss here, I definitely can recommend them. It's AD600 Pro and AD1200 Pro. And if you can still carry AD600 Pro somewhere or ask assistant to do it, AD1200 Pro is definitely not for hiking. Only once I managed to walk with it through the forest for a couple of kilometers, and honestly it was quite a nice workout session. What can I say about them? They are super powerful. You can be absolutely confident that you will get the shots and overpower all the things out. Regarding flash triggers, mainly I was using X Pro 1 and X Pro 2. They are great, very comfortable and easy to use. X Pro 2 has Bluetooth connection as well, so you can for example download Godox app and sync it with the trigger. But really the game changer is the new X3 super compact trigger with a touchscreen. If before the flash control with trigger was quite convenient, now it reached a completely new level. The touchscreen and the little control wheel on the side of the new trigger allows you to work with the flashes really quickly. I absolutely fell in love with it. A very important thing that I want to say here is that every flash that I mentioned has a modeling light mode. It's very useful and it can be used in light trail photography. In some models like AD300 Pro and AD100 Pro, you can even control light's temperature, so you can make it cold or warm, for example if you're shooting videos as well. Okay, and now let's get into my main and favorite light schemes that I'm using. If you're shooting extreme stuff like me, for you the main issue will be how to set up those schemes in very sketchy and uncomfy circumstances, like in mountains, rivers, trees, and etc. So my one and only suggestion, always in any mission take a tape with you. It's a tool number one for a photographer. Of course, there are hundreds of these schemes, and there are unlimited potential of how you can use the additional light. It all depends how creative you are, but I will show you the most standard classic ones. The standard light scheme. Nothing extraordinary here. I'm always trying to highlight the athlete's face, except for those situations when there is no special need to this. And also, in all next schemes, where more lights are used, I always set up this scheme first, because it's the main one, and only after I tested it and saw that everything works perfectly and highlights what I need, I will continue to set up all the other lights. Always remember that the sun is the most powerful flash that you have. This scheme is great when you have only one flash, or circumstances do not allow to set up a second flash. So you can plan your shoot in the early morning or before the sunset. The only disadvantage is that you cannot move the sun, so you gotta make sure that you plan your shoot perfectly according to the sun position. You can download Photo Pills or Sun Surveyor app to know where the sun will be at this or that exact moment. This one is probably my most used scheme. Same main light in front or side of an athlete, and the second light as rim light to highlight the contour. So with this light scheme, an athlete will be quite good separated from the background. Just remember that you can always experiment and move the second light a bit backwards or forwards, so that the side light is more or less intense. Now let's add one more light to the previous scheme. It's not gonna be used for the athlete, but it's gonna be used to highlight additional objects. You can highlight some particles, splashes, bike parts, and etc. On the photo you can see that splashes are quite good highlighted, and it was done by hiding one of the flashes behind these small rocks. Unfortunately, while we were setting up for this shot, the security guard came really fast and kicked us from the spot. So I had only 2 or 3 attempts to take a good shot and quickly run away. That's why the light here looks a little bit rough. But on this photo, the effect of the current light scheme looks great. 2 side flashes were installed for dramatic lighting. Sometimes this scheme looks great to highlight the contrast and drama for the scene. If you have one flash, you can always experiment with one backlight setup. Mostly it will be a silhouette shot, so to highlight the athlete, add some particles or wait for cool weather conditions like snow, fog or rain. For this kind of shot, even a D200 Pro will fit perfectly. So with all these schemes, the number one rule, don't forget to experiment with flashes. Sometimes just adding or removing one light can make a huge difference, same as moving light sources a bit from their original place. And it's always a bit of a game to play with the framing and composition and to play with the light sources. In most cases I try to use light softening attachments, but unfortunately any soft boxes and umbrellas slightly absorb light power, so there is always a decision between more light power or more light quality on the athlete. So actually here's the main reason when those powerful flashes like a D600 Pro and a D1200 Pro will fit perfectly. You may be sacrificing light output for quality because the flashes are already very powerful. For action shots outside, I mainly use soft boxes because they provide a targeted soft light in the area that I want to highlight. Same as experimenting and playing an interesting game with flashes position and light sources power, there is another game with light modifiers. For example, a shot with standard white lights may not be as interesting as a shot where color gels are used. It's always a huge field of experiments. Don't be afraid to change something to gain more interesting results. So that's it. I hope all the information that I have provided here was useful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me on Instagram. Thank you for your time and have a great day.